The German companies now, in dealing with the end of the Cold War and the rise of competitiveness, are adopting a variety of strategies to deal with the new challenge, the challenges of competitiveness and globalization. For example, BMW has worked to remain competitive not by stopping the design or by cheapening the product, but by implementing an overall strategy that somehow includes making production more efficient. It includes contributing to workforce development, and it includes innovating new models and engines, including alternative energy engines, and the 100% recycling of every car that's produced in Germany. One way that they've worked to make production more efficient was to create a real-time production system through which very small design changes could be realized immediately in the production process. One of the ways that they've used to contribute to workforce development was to pay for the construction of an engineering building at the Technical University of Munich. An example of technological innovation involved computerizing models of traffic flow patterns in and out of Munich. Using these onboard computers, these models warned drivers in Munich of traffic congestion and proposing alternative routes, and in some cases suggesting parking outside of the city and taking public transportation. In other words, for BMW, in typical German fashion, ensuring the overall quality experience of driving a BMW was more important than actually maximizing the use of the car. The rise of globalization brought with it additional pressures on Germans as people move around the world with greater frequency. Vestiges of the old philosophy of progress through imminent emergence from the inside and from the inside out, can be seen in contemporary resistance to immigrant workers, revealingly termed in the German context guest workers. In the decades after World War II, West Germany had actively sought immigrant workers. They wanted them in order to address labor shortages that were often acute, although these immigrant workers, the guest workers, were not permitted to gain citizenship, again, to preserve the purity of the German stock. In the 1990s, however, groups from Italy, from Turkey, and other countries had become targets of right-wing groups that were fearful of the loss of German identity from a transformation inside the country. German companies and engineering personnel are also moving increasingly throughout Europe and around the world. Until the 1990s, the European community would not consider the graduates of the specialized institutes to be legitimate engineers. So the state-level ministries of education began upgrading the specialized institutes as well to university status. For example, the Ministry of Education and Culture in Bavaria approved a name change for the Specialized Institute of Munich to the Munich University of Applied Sciences. It was this change that allowed the new Munich University to compete with the existing technical universities for graduate students. So this change in name and status also came with a significant grant to build the new teaching and research building for electrical engineering. A second form of pressure came from the fact that engineers outside of Germany, working outside, born and trained outside, didn't recognize and couldn't understand the meaning of the German diplomaed engineer. And yet, German companies, who were becoming multinationals, were recruiting heavily in countries outside of Germany. Ministries of education inside the country then began responding positively to pressure from companies such as Siemens and BMW, which were lobbying hard for a model that more closely approximated the U.S. system of engineering education, with a 4-year bachelor's degree followed by a 2-year master's degree. And also the companies lobbied to reduce the 26-week period of practical experience before enrolling in a technical university. And concern about working with people from different countries also legitimized the introduction of significant language training in engineering education. For example, at the Munich University of Applied Sciences, the industrial engineers were required to take 5 semesters of courses in English and at least a couple of courses in French. In sum, at the turn of the 21st century, Germany had roughly 500,000 engineers, most working in large corporations and as civil servants. These engineers knew that by virtue of the quality, precise work that they did as practicing engineers, were contributing directly to German progress. It is then the German image of progress through quality, most specifically and recently as engineering precision, that provides the key lens for understanding the life and the work of German engineers, but only in relationship to the historical emergence, the development of national unification. First, in the late 19th century, under Kaiser William I and II, and then throughout the 20th century, engineers have had to claw their way into a relatively high social status, although I will point out, still not as high as the most elite French engineers. The German engineer will likely remain in this relatively high status inside the German nation state, so long as technological development, the development of techniques, continues to be identified with the progress of the German nation.